Welcome back. Joining me now to go through some of the week's top stories is former Liberal Democrat MP and former Minister of State for Crime Prevention, Norman Baker. Norman, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
A new book out, again.
Again, different one. It's out to the 15th of October. It's called And What Do You Do? It's about the royal family.
We'll have you on about that.
Thank you.
Serialised in a national newspaper. We can't talk about it here. Anyway, let's talk about the Tory party conference, which actually is related to the Queen and the monarchy.
Yes.
Rumours that the Queen has been asking advice about how to remove Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. How do you think the conference has gone?
Well, I think it's a bit bizarre, to be perfectly frank with you. We've had 10 years of austerity, and George Osborne and his colleagues and Philip Hammond telling us we can't afford to spend money. We have to save money up for the consequences of Brexit. And here we are with a forest of money trees that suddenly appeared. Money everywhere. Buses, police officers, roads.
Success of the previous Tory administration, the administration you served in, that has allowed Britain to do this.
Is that what they said?
Well, is it lies?
No, I think it looks to me like an old classic pre-election bribe.
Let's go to this story from the Express.
Yes, Express. Corbyn's plot to axe universal credit would be devastating, says Ian Duncan-Smith. The quiet man of politics is now turning up the volume, no doubt.
A defence of universal credit, which most people arguably say has killed people in this country.
Well, I took it seriously, that allegation, and undoubtedly...
17,000 deaths.
It's not, well, I don't believe it's 17,000. Undoubtedly, it's not been well handled, and there are issues with the structure of it that need to be replaced. But the concept of it seems to me to be correct. The concept being that you should never be worse off in work than when you're on benefits.
This former Tory leader seems to be saying, yes, under Blair and Brown it was terrible, these anomalies showed up, but, I mean, while people might accept that, you can't possibly say that universal credit, after UN special rapporteurs in poverty have said the introduction of this has been a catastrophe for
the introduction has not been well handled, but the principle is right.
This is why you voted for it?
Well, I voted because it was part of the coalition agreement.
OK, well, let's go to the Japanese-owned Financial Times.
Yes, an interesting story. Twitter executive is British Army Information Warfare Unit Reservist. And people don't necessarily know that the British Army has had a policy of having information put out in a way that influences public opinion.
Did you know about it when you were Home Office Minister? You're not a member of the 77th Brigade of the British Army, I hope.
No.
Giving me disinformation.
No, a Freemason. No, I mean, I knew about this from my days in opposition, and I found out what they were doing then.
What did they do? I mean, he's using British Army techniques, but...
Look, I think every government in the world, whether it's the British or the Americans or the Russians or the Chinese, have got people who are pumping out messages and information, either through social media or through friends in the press, that they want to have communicated. There's nothing new about it.
That's why we have Dominic Cummings, that's why we had Alistair Campbell,
yes.
Your good friend Tony Blair's.
Yes, and that's why the answer is, first of all, a diverse press, so there's not too much power in a few hands, and secondly, the Freedom of Information Act acting properly so you can find out what's going on. They're the answers and the safeguards for the situation. Now, there's nothing wrong with the British Army potentially putting out messages, and there's nothing wrong with...
Covertly, it has to be said.
Well, I know, but it's long as we can find out about them.
He's been tweeting, if it is indeed this guy, against Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes.
Massively
if he has
against
been,
a leading politician.
Well, I don't know that, but if he has been, that's not right. And quite clearly, there's a potential conflict of interest between his position working for the British Army and what might be happening on Twitter. And that's an unwise situation, which the Army should not have allowed to occur.
You don't think this means that there needs to be some kind of review?
Well, I do think there needs to be a review. I do think that needs to be examined, and I think it's unwise when somebody can be seen to have a potential conflict of interest.